when you're in pain, soothing as a springtime rain, to have a friend right in your corner. Your heart will feel a little warmer. Tender loving care, tender loving care. Each warm and friendly touch lets someone know you care so much. Tender loving care, tender loving care.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Greenbrier Almond, and as you can see, I have a very impressive guest, Dennis Cordes. Dennis has been in my life for 20 years, perhaps. Dennis, it's been a while, and you have run the studio, Channel 3, for a number of years, and what is it, 6 or 8 years you've turned it over to others here.
We started Mountain State Video Imaging summer of '03.
Okay.
And about 2.5 years later, I turned it over to my technician, Rodney.
Rodney.
Now I work for him instead of him working for me. It works out.
Yeah.
It's a good arrangement.
It's a good combination.
And we are, how old are we now, Rodney? 12 years old.
Wow.
But yeah, I was running the Channel 3 for a few months anyway, before that, as the station manager.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm so glad that you're on today, and welcome to our program, Tender Loving Care. It's seldom that you actually are on this side of the camera.
Well, the only time I'm on this side of the camera is when I'm hosting the Antique Car Parade. Even when I'm doing car shows, sometimes I'm behind the camera, so sometimes I'm in front. Depends on if we have a cameraman.
Well, we have a mutual interest today. We're both authors.
Yeah.
And so many people may be surprised to know that Dennis Cordes is an author, but that's what we're going to find out today.
Yeah.
I want to, before we come to you again, I want to just emphasize that Artistry on Main here in Buchanan, or the St. Joseph's Hospital Gift Shop, or the Historic Society, and other places in town, my father's book is available, The Stories of a West Virginia Doctor. This has become the perennial bestseller of the state of West Virginia, and some 12,000 copies out there right now. Then after my father passed away, his stories were so well received that, and he'd been a guest on this TV program, so Dennis, something to look forward to. He was a guest 52 times, and we got a book out of that. Stories that he told.
I've read his books and your books.
And then as I became a grandfather, there were Stories of a West Virginia Doctor's Son. I began to think about how Dad had told us stories, bedtime stories, and other stories around the kitchen table that I needed to tell for the grandchildren.
Yeah.
And then yet another book for the grandchildren. And then as we people began to tell me stories, I entitled this Stories of a West Virginia Doctor for Kith and Kin, not only for the grandchildren and relatives, but also for our neighbors. And it's been an exciting journey, but all those are available. And in fact, then at Thanksgiving time on Black Friday, we're gonna, when everyone's out shopping, stop by Artistry on Main in the afternoon, and we'll be filming some reading of stories for future programs like this. But a new book will be available, Stories of a West Virginia Doctor's Family. And my sisters will be telling stories, and I think it's a fascinating variation in storytelling.
Okay.
But how about you, Dennis? How did you get involved in storytelling?
Well, when I was a child, I had I still have 3 siblings.
Okay.
My dad would tell us bedtime stories, and he invented a character called Icky Icky Ack.
Icky Icky Ack.
A-C-K. Ack.
Okay.
And he was an Eskimo lad, about our age at that point in time, and he would teach us geography. We would sit around the family globe, and he would tell us stories, and we would follow around the globe everywhere Icky went, in his flying kayak.
Okay, so there's some magic to those stories.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, you know, we grew up with magical characters like that, didn't we? Superman could fly.
Superman,
And there was
Batman,
Superboy and Batman had
Mickey Mouse.
powers. Yeah,
Mickey Mouse was a magical character in his own
Yeah.
right, you know, for
Right.
example.
right.
So-
But your dad sparked that imagination in you.
He did, and after I got out of service, went back home to Detroit, where I'm from, and I started writing. I decided to pick up the tradition,
Okay.
and I wrote one short story, just a few pages long, and submitted to a VA-sponsored writing project. Lo and behold, it won Editor's Choice Award.
Wow. Okay.
And that sparked me to write 4 more chapters to book 1.
Well, let me say, I had a chance to read, peruse at least the stories, and there's a lot to digest in them, but I can see why it was a winner.
Oh, thank you.
It's well written, it's exciting, it's got a lot of dynamic, you know, just what kids want to know.
Would you like to hear the beginning?
Yeah, let's hear a section.
I'll read a short section of the beginning here.
Okay. Prize winning, folks. Okay.
That's right. Icky Icky Ack and his flying kayak. The beginning. He was born to an Eskimo family near the town of Barrett in the state of Alaska. He was born in the middle of December, but because his family lived north of the Arctic Circle, he did not see the sun until April. His early years were spent playing with the other children and learning many things. He went to school and learned everything they taught. After school, he learned how to use a small boat called a kayak and how to hunt for seals and other sea animals.
So let me not
Go ahead.
keep your place, but my dad taught a lot about medicine. Your dad's teaching geography. He's teaching how the sun sets and how long the days are in Alaska.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well-
many things he's teaching you without actually giving you a lecture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I wrote this part. Dad would
Okay.
teach us geography.
Okay.
But when I wrote these stories, the story and a half, it's a book 2, not quite finished, I added morals in there too.
Ah,
Some
okay.
morals.
Okay. So like Aesop's fables would.
Yeah, sort of.
Every story has it. Okay.
So to continue, many kayaks are built for only one person. It looks like a canoe with a cover. One summer day, he asked his mother, "Mom, can I stay out until dark?" His mother, not thinking when she said, "Sure, son, enjoy yourself." She forgot that the sun would not set until early October. It was 3 o'clock in the morning when she knew he had tricked her. Because the sun was still high in the sky, she found him quickly. He was on a hill where he could see the ships coming into the harbor. His mother was upset. "You tricked me, and I get home right away." And he said, "Yes, Mom," and he went home.
You know, we used to play outdoors a lot. I'm sure you did too,
Oh, yeah.
growing up in Detroit. And the rule of thumb was you play out till dark.
That's where I got this from.
Right. You know, we used to play ball, and it would seem to me that for 1 minute you could see the ball, you could hit it, you could see it in the air, catch it, and then the sun would set, and then it would be dark. But
Yeah.
it seemed like it happened right in an instant. But
It did. It seemed like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. Yes. Well, there are many other factors of the story here. It involves when Icky was kidnapped by some tramp steamer is what it amounts to.
okay.
Although I use different words in the story.
okay, Navy. This is from your Navy experience. Now you're picking up about ships and so forth.
Well, being in Detroit, they got the Detroit River right there.
Oh, okay, sure.
We would see tramp steamers all the time, you know, and they're all over the world.
Yeah.
Well, he was kidnapped and taken to Calcutta, India, and sold
goodness.
as a
Okay.
slave, and then whoever bought him took him to the Himalayan mountains, where he learned some more magic. This is where he learned how to make his kayak fly and to make it invisible. My dad didn't have the invisible part in his stories,
Right.
so
Let
I
me ask you,
added that.
The geography of this, you have, I think the motto of the Navy, if not official, at least as part of the lore, join the Navy and see the world.
Yeah.
So your dad sparked that by telling these stories, but in fact you've had a Navy career.
I had a short career,
Okay.
4 years.
4 years. Okay.
68 to 72.
Yeah.
My dad was Army Air Corps during World War twice. I was Navy during the Vietnam era.
Mm-hmm.
My two sons were Army. One was airborne, one was not during the first Gulf crisis. So,
Wow.
and my dad's father, in fact, served as in the Coastal Artillery, which was part of the Army, at the foot of Manhattan during World War One.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a long tradition of service.
Yeah.
So salute you
Yeah.
for that. That's a good thing.
Well, he gets
And your
back
family.
to Barrow as about 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7 years later, and he surprises his dad in a store. By this time, the harbor is a mess. There's an oil refinery there that's been just polluting everything, and his father can't hunt and fish anymore. He's working at a hardware store, and Icky walks in unannounced.
So you get a chance to, in your story, and
Yeah.
this story should have morals like this, I think, say that our environment is precious,
It is.
and once it's lost, it's hard to redeem it, and you all that's in your story. Wow.
It is. Icky buys a kayak from this salesman, turns out to be his father.
Yeah.
And when he reveals himself, the father promptly faints. Yeah, I would.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then he goes on
do you
to-
think, now we have. I mean, there are other issues here too. I mean, you're highlighting a lot of things. I believe it's 300,000, but it's a huge number of children disappear every year
Yeah.
in our country, and we're a vast country, over 300 million people. But we don't know if those children are kidnapped or if they're sold into slavery. Many of them
right.
just die on the streets, unfortunately, and we don't
We
know.
don't know. You're right, we don't know.
But you touch on a moral chord. So if a parent were reading this to a child, the child could be told, obey mom and dad. Don't wander off in the malls. Don't
Sure.
don't
Absolutely.
except don't get in a car of a stranger on the way home from school, or
Yeah.
all sorts of other things that you could teach a child
Yeah.
just from reading this book.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Do you think it's likely that, I mean, and you write about it, but that a child could be picked up in Detroit and end up in India?
It's possible.
Possible, yeah.
Not very probable, but it's
Yeah,
possible.
yeah.
Especially with the air traffic nowadays. Doesn't have to be aboard a ship.
Oh, that's true. That's true too.
They'd be driven out to, say, Kansas City or somewhere, get on a plane there and go anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
right.
So, like you say, it's very important for the parents to keep their children under
Yeah.
their eye.
You know, and it's I don't know, I can't fathom it, but there's 40,000 or maybe more children than that coming up from the Mexican border into the United States. Children alone coming into the United States, and
Who's sending these?
I know what parent
Children.
would do that, and how would they?
Right.
Why would they do it? I mean,
I can't fathom
yeah,
that action.
right.
The reasoning behind it,
Yeah,
it baffles me.
their children are bound to get into trouble. I mean, it just
They
looks that
have,
way.
yeah, just like children do.
Even in West Virginia, we don't have very many foreigners, but we do have a foster care system. We have children who have not been safe in their own home, and now they're taken out. But those children have unhappy lives too, don't they? I mean,
Sure.
there's adults who maybe are not taking the best care of them, but they have to go from here to there.
I know one family, I won't mention names, but there's a 1.5-year-old daughter that is doing a lot better under Grandma and Grandpa's care than she was under her parents'
Yeah.
care.
And
she has an 8-year-old older brother. He's
And
doing all
that's
right.
a strong tradition where grandparents take over
Yeah,
and help out. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So you get into all of that in
I
this
do,
book.
yes.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Why Alaska? I mean, why did your dad want to have an interest in Alaska? I mean,
You know, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I think he had the idea for an Eskimo child. He invented the name Icky Yak.
Yeah, yeah.
And he had to put him in Alaska, but he didn't say where in Alaska.
Right.
When I wrote the story, I had to make a decision as to where he would be from. So I chose the most northern point on the continent,
Okay.
Point Barrow.
Okay.
Well, town of Barrow is right near Point Barrow.
Yeah. And this is an oil-rich drilling
is now,
area.
yeah.
Now, and that's part of the pollution.
When I wrote the story, it was oil rich. The pipeline had already been built. So there you go. The pipeline shows up in the story too.
Yeah, I read that. In the magic of being invisible and having a flying kayak, he can follow the pipeline.
Well, he takes pictures of and sends of the oil refinery and all the bad stuff that's going on, and he develops his own pictures. This is old film, so this tells you how long ago the book was written. We didn't have digital cameras back when I wrote this first part of the story.
Yeah.
So that dates it. Well,
You know, the other thing,
then he gets in-
I can see here is, and it makes it apropos to our community. We're getting a pipeline through Upshur County right now.
That's right.
now, and
I'd forgotten about that.
yeah, and so that's we've got people moving in here in camping trailers, and I think they're good people. They're working hard and they're putting the line in, but that's something that a parent would want to tell their child about.
Yeah, sure.
Be careful and so forth.
Some ideas would be progress. Some would view it otherwise.
Yeah, that's right.
So-
There's danger, environmental danger to
Well,
having
when
a
he
pipeline.
takes these pictures and has them developed, he gives them to the local papers and that. But it doesn't seem to go much of any place. So he takes his pictures down to the head DEA office in Juneau, the capital.
Okay.
And to get there, I used a National Geographic map and I traced this line.
Ah, okay.
And I wrote out everything that was in there, and all the way across. Right, that's a
Right.
long chapter.
Right. I saw
it
that you had a
it
lot of
describes-
names and markers, and I wondered
Yeah.
how you did that.
Well, I did that on purpose because after he meets with the DEA people, he takes his kayak and he put it on a C-130 cargo
Yeah.
plane, which I know what it is, but I didn't mention what kind of plane. And they fly back to Barrow. And it only takes them 4 hours to fly back. And Icky says,
Right.
"Oh my!"
How long is my kayak? 2,000 miles.
He said,
I
"I'm
think
not
he
using the
said.
kayak again."
Yeah, 2,000 miles.
So there was a little humor in there too.
Sure. Let me ask you about your father. Tell me a little bit about him. I mean, here's a man who he sits a globe in front of his children. I mean, he has fantasies of the world, right? I mean, he's looking at the whole world, the global picture. That was before our time. I mean, many people would not be thinking that way
I
back
don't
in
think
the 50s.
that
or
way
so.
today. A lot of people today don't know what a globe is.
Yeah.
A globe is a round ball with a map of the world on it. It
Right.
sits on the frame. You can spin it around.
We used to have them in school libraries. I mean, the
Yeah.
people could probably imagine seeing one.
We had
But-
a lot
but
of
your
them in
dad-
school classrooms too.
Right, but your dad really, he had one in your home, and he made it a point.
I
of
still have one in
emphasis.
my home.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have one here in the corner of this room, room too, for our children.
Okay, we should have brought it out here.
Yeah, we didn't think about it.
Didn't think about it. No.
We have to be on another time, and we'll have to look at the globe. But your dad was a special man. I want to say that.
Still is. He's still alive.
So that's right. Yeah.
He'll be
And-
100 next August.
And by the way, and I don't even know if we're currently using our theme song,
Oh yeah.
but
I'm playing-
the song that goes with our program, Tender Loving Care, is written by your dad.
Yeah.
And I paid him for it, and then he never cashed the check, so it's a gift. I mean,
It is.
he
It was-
gifted this song back to our community.
He did.
And your dad did something else. He wrote the Strawberry Festival theme song.
He did that too. Yes.
And what a man.
And he never cashed that check.
How about that? What a man. So now he has inspired you then to actually, he didn't write these stories down, he just told you these stories.
These are all verbatim. He never wrote any of the stories down.
But now you're writing them down.
Yeah. One of the commandments says, honor thy father and thy mother. Well, a couple of ways I've done that is to copy and continue the story, honoring my dad
Right.
with the continuation of the character into the same type of stories.
Right?
The details differ, but it would be basically the same kind.
Yeah.
The other way was selling the copy of the When It's Spring in West Virginia to the Strawberry Festival. And they brought him up here, him and Mom, they brought them both up here
Yeah.
from Florida, put him in the main feature parade. I think it was 99,
Wow.
1999.
Very good.
That's my way of honoring. I do other ways too. You know.
Yeah, no, that's a tremendous honor. If people want to approach you, and I hope that some will, to get a copy of your book, because you put a lot of time into this and a lot of thinking into this, and it's a good tool for teaching children about the world, some of the dangers of the world. Can they just call you in the phone book, or how do they want to? How you want to be
They
contacted?
can call me at 304-472-1104, or they can send me a little note to 3 Cleveland Avenue, Buckhannon, West Virginia 26201.
Okay, so in that way you
But
can.
there is a caveat.
Okay.
In the book, Icky Icky Ack has brothers and sisters. The number of siblings should not change, but the names of them is the story is designed for those names to change to whatever your kids are.
Okay.
What was the word you used earlier this afternoon in relation to changing the names?
I don't remember now. But
Family friendly or something?
yeah, family friendly perhaps would
Yeah.
be a good way to say that.
Or you,
Yeah.
if I was to publish this, then you would order a copy from that particular publisher, and I haven't even approached the publisher yet. And you would tell them what your children's or grandchildren's or your siblings' names
Right.
are, and they would put them in the book in place of the names I used because I used my grandchildren's names and my children's names. So there was that.
Right.
And another note, book 1 is 25 pages long, and book 2 is only 12. It's not finished yet. After we moved here, I did write I started the second book. I never got it finished because life intervened and one thing led to another, and I had to put the book aside for a while. Now, my grandchildren have the task of finishing the second book.
You
So
tell
we'll-
them,
we'll
you
see
tell
what
them
happens.
stories though, and they can, their
Well,
imagination can
They
run.
can write
Wow.
their own stories.
Sure.
Pick up
sure.
where I left off and continue on their own. See, like I did with my
Right.
dad.
You know, Dad
They
used to do this
do
with
the
the
same thing.
Brer Rabbit stories, and I know there's Uncle Remus and Brer Rabbit, and he was a historic figure and author and so forth. Joel Chandler Harris was writing those in the South, but anyway, as Dad would tell the story, then he would say, "Well, I wonder who else do we want in the story tonight?" And we would suggest characters, and we would
There
become
you
very
go.
involved in the
Yeah.
creative process.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go.
Difference
So
between
even though the
Brer
structure-
Rabbit and we hardly ever left the hillside that we lived on. I mean, we just got into the briar patch and
Yeah.
and so forth. But you went around the world here,
Well, pretty near,
even to Detroit. I mean, I read this and I learned something about Detroit.
I'm from Detroit, so
You can
when
go
write,
to Canada, go south from Detroit to get into Canada. Now,
exactly
I didn't
because
know that.
of a hook in the Detroit River.
Yeah.
Detroit is north of Windsor, Ontario.
How about that?
That's right. And from the top of the Renaissance Center, where Icky is sitting there
Yeah.
at the beginning of book 2, he can look across the river and see Canadian flags, and with the sun coming up on his left, he knows that's east. He goes, something's not copacetic here.
Right.
Then he figures it out.
It's like talking about West Virginia. West Virginia is a southern state, and it's further south than Richmond. It's an eastern state. It's further east than name some eastern town. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're it's a funny state.
It is.
Northern state. It's further north than Pittsburgh, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, the hook in
Part
the
of it,
river.
yeah, the northern
very
panhandle
part. Yeah,
is- yeah.
that's the trick part.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you travel Alaska, India.
I've never been to
Hawaiian-
India. I've never been in the.
But I mean, in
I've
your
never
book,
been on the Pacific Ocean.
in your book.
In the book I did it, yeah. If you look at in the book, Icky is kidnapped as a child by what we call a tramp freighter. In the book, it's just a ship with no name, rusty old bucket. And he goes places, and then they make him work in a dirty engine room and cleaning dirty, nasty places, and he doesn't understand the language, but he does understand names of places where they are going to. And if you trace it on the globe, you can see he's going to Guam,
Yeah.
Saipan, or Formosa, I can't remember.
Yeah. In Singapore.
Singapore
Yeah.
and Calcutta. You can
Yeah.
trace his route right around the corner. Layer, say, you can follow it along.
Wow. So
Say.
it really is a geopolitical novel here.
Yeah, exactly.
About this. You know,
It teaches
the other
both
thing,
geography
the other
and
thing I
morals.
found fascinating, and we're going to have Halloween here soon, but ghost ships. Ghost ships.
Yeah, there's a ghost ship
That's
in
in
the
there.
book too. Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating.
Unfortunately, and I'm going to tell you this right up front, the ghost ship I happen to use, the ship I happen to use as a ghost ship is the LaSalle's Griffin.
Okay. Historically true.
It is historically true, yeah. The French explorer LaSalle built the ship for the Great Lakes, and he took it up to Green Bay, which where is now Wisconsin. Loaded it with furs, and when he sailed in 1679, he just disappeared. The ship disappeared anyway. So I use that as a ghost ship. There's a saying on the Great Lakes that when a ship is lost, they say the ship sailed through a crack in the lakes. And I use that in the story.
And that means, what would that be? By imagination, back into time and into another era, another world, or something?
The water will separate and the ship will hit the bottom.
Oh, okay, okay.
And literally, it sailed through a crack in the lake.
So, okay.
Big storm comes up and you got waters going two different directions. No, it's a known fact. It's nothing imaginary about a crack in the lake, you know. But nobody seems to realize that expression is used in relation to the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
So the Griffin sails through a crack in the lake and it's gone.
It's gone.
I use it as a ghost ship. Lo and behold, a couple of years ago, they found her. She's right outside of Green Bay, on the bottom of Lake Michigan.
Right. Well, that doesn't mean that you can't tell a ghost story about it.
No,
anyway, I mean, there's
Yeah.
we've gone to graveyards and told ghost stories at Halloween,
Yeah.
and it's fascinating. Well, Dennis, you are a multi-talented man, American Legion historian.
Former.
You've been active in the Catholic Church in our community.
I still am, yeah.
And so are started and continued the TV channel and this video Mountain State Video Imaging Corporation, and now you're an author. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
And I want to just give people one more notice before we go off the air. Let's give your mail address. It seems like that's probably the better way to reach you.
I probably would be, yeah. Send me a note to Dennis Cortes, Cortes, at 3 Cleveland Avenue, Buckhannon, West Virginia, 26201.
Okay, and Dennis and you can negotiate a way to get a copy of this and fascinate your own children and grandchildren.
Sure.
And until the next time, this is Dr. Greenbrier Allman thanking you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Special thanks to Channel 3 for this opportunity to come your way each week. See you next week.
Stories of a West Virginia Doctor, written by Dr. Harold D. Allman. A collection of 55 short stories about his experience as a small-town doctor in central West Virginia. And Tender Loving Care. Stories from a West Virginia Doctor, Volume 2, written by Dr. Greenbrier Allman, using videotapes to write 70 additional stories of his father's very colorful life as a small-town doctor. They can be found for purchase at Amazon.com and most local bookstores. Tune into Channel 3 Buckhannon for Tender Loving Care with Dr. Greenbrier Allman, where he talks about the connection between Christianity and medicine.